like this lightly. You have to have conversations with people all across the state, and this was kind of the beginning of that. There's a lot of corners of Ohio that I may have been in them, but I don't have established relationships, and the people that were in this room are leaders in their local community and the Democratic Party, and it's important to get to know them.
Sound like you gave everybody a reason to believe that you're going to be the candidate.
Well, I'm very, very serious about it. And I think, as I said before, I wanted to be very respectful of Governor Strickland's schedule and his timetable. But I've been encouraged by what I've been told since that date. I've accelerated my timetable, so I'll be saying something official pretty soon. I can't be too much more specific than that. But I think in the first quarter of this year. And I think it's very important. One thing I didn't mention out there, because they've got a long agenda and I didn't want to go on too long, I think it's important for the Democratic Party to have an announced candidate relatively soon to tell the other side of the story of what the Kasich record has been. So the sooner the better.
What are the factors that are playing into your decision?
You know, I've got 4 children and a wife of 21 years, and we've been having conversations. I've just got to make sure that I can do all my family responsibilities. I run a big county. It's the largest county in Ohio, and we're just kind of stabilizing some things there. I've got to make sure that house is in order. We made a lot of progress, but I've got to make sure that that's all where it needs to be. And then I just need to make sure that we can build a coalition that's going to win, and that takes some time to do.
Are you at all worried that the turnpike issue could hurt you in areas outside of northern Ohio, downstate in Cincinnati, perhaps?
No, not really, because I think everybody, no matter where you are in Ohio, they understand the concept of robbing Peter to pay Paul. And even though northern Ohio may get the shaft on that part of the deal, I don't think that southern Ohio wants to succeed at northern Ohio's expense. And there's also plenty of issues where southern Ohio has been treated poorly. So I think it all balances. It all kind of balances out.
What did you mean when you said the plan that he has now is still flawed?
Because it raises tolls on people that use the highway, and apparently that's going to be used for statewide projects. And it's going to take away, from what I've heard, there's a very strong chance that it's going to take away the gas tax money that the northern part of the state should be entitled to. And it's a tax increase. I mean, look, it depends what your definition of a tax increase is. If your definition of a tax increase is when the government takes more of your money, which I would say most people's definition would be, that means taxes for the hundreds of thousands of people that use the turnpike on a daily basis that live in northern Ohio. That means their taxes just went up. So I think it's a flawed proposal. I don't think it's as bad as it would have been if it had been privatized, but I still think it's flawed.
With Kasich already having over $2 million in the bank, how important is it for you not to have a contested primary?
I think that's very important. I think that unfortunately, campaign finance spending in America has gotten out of control, but that is a fact that we have to live with. And so any candidate for governor has to raise money quickly and aggressively, and they do have to. The Democratic candidate will have to compete with an incumbent. So to try to do that, which I think is doable, but to try to do that and have a competitive primary at the same time is a very tall order. It's not impossible, but I think it's to be avoided, and we'll try to avoid it. But there's no way to do that unless we can build a consensus, which was what today was the beginning of that process, I hope.
How would you describe your leadership as Cuyahoga County Executive, and contrast that with Governor Kasich, if you would?
Well, a few things. Number one is we've been very open and very transparent. If you look at the Kasich administration, it's been very opaque and very secretive. And so actually we got national recognition in terms of being open in terms of our government processes. So let's take economic development for example. We've had the biggest increase in economic development programs and activity in Cuyahoga County in its history, but we do all that openly. So we have an open process. And you look at that at the governor's approach, which has been to keep it behind closed doors and try to make decisions in secret. So that's one big difference, I think. There's going to be others that I'll point out as the year goes on, but that's one big difference.
You're critical of the turnpike plan. What would you do for state transportation?
Well, we've got to talk about that. But you start out saying, he's put a proposal together, and rather than just adopting it without being critical, because we were going to be the folks that were really going to be living with the results of that decision, those of us that live in northern Ohio, I think it was incumbent upon us to sit down and say what was right or what was wrong with it. And we didn't see a lot that was right with it. Now, a responsible approach would have been to bring us together at the table, sit down with the legislature, and figure out how do you fund infrastructure. But I can tell you, it's been very top-down. You mentioned before what are the differences in leadership style. The best leaders bring people in at the table, and it's from the bottom up, and it's not all top-down. It's not dictating to people or telling people get on the bus or it's going to run over you. And the Turnpike bus was going to run over us as well. So if they want to have a dialogue about how to fund it in a more equitable way, we'll be all ears about that. And I'll talk about that more if a campaign actually starts.
Ed, you talk.
A recent Quinnipiac poll said that 84% of Ohio voters don't know who you are, or don't have enough information about you to have an opinion.
The 16% that do loved me. That's good news.
Ed, you talked about...
I don't think she's done with the question. I don't think that was the question. I don't
No. So how are you going to build name ID statewide? I mean,
Well,
how much time do you think it's going to take? How much money?
Well, I think it takes a long time, but I think there's a long time to the election. And so if you look at, was John Kasich known all over Ohio when he started? No. He was known in central Ohio. He wasn't known in my part of Ohio. Was Ted Strickland known all over Ohio? Absolutely not. He wasn't known in a lot of the media markets. It's one of the reasons I think you've got to start early. To me, it's the simplest challenge in a way, because whoever the Democratic nominee is going to be quite well known, trust me, by the time 2014 comes along. So we've got some time to do that. Yes, sir.
You talked about balancing the budget without raising taxes and without taking taxes from local communities.
Right.
Can you pull that trick off again at the state level?
I'm sure going to try. I can tell you the way we did it in Cuyahoga County is we analyzed every single function of government. I mean, we made government radically more efficient, whether it was reducing number of personnel or the way benefits package was paid or our physical space or utility, any of those things. I mean, we looked at everything. And we were able to absorb, even the fact that the governor raided our local government fund, we were able to absorb a lot of those cuts. So that'll be something that's going to be a challenge, but that's my default position, is to try to go through that kind of analysis.
In your speech, you
Yeah, go
mentioned
ahead.
that Governor Kasich has people that are following you, yet in public, when we asked him about your potential candidacy, he
Knows
kind
nothing
of
about
shrugged
it.
it off. What's your response to that?
Well, I mean, look, this is, I can tell you for several months now, the Ohio Republican Party, with his hand-picked person running it, has been making public records requests of, everybody I talked to on the telephone and emails I sent and so forth. Now, if people want to believe that the head of the Ohio Republican Party did that without talking to John Kasich, they can believe that if they want. I don't believe it. I mean, I think he's very aware of it. He knows, especially after the Quinnipiac poll came out, he knows that Ohio voters have expressed very clearly by a pretty strong majority that they don't want him to be reelected. So he's going to be looking very closely at whoever the likely nominee is.
Have you spoken with Tim Ryan or Cordray or any of the other candidates about?
Not since the governor's announcement. I talked to the Governor Strickland's announcement. I spoke to Governor Strickland the day before his announcement became public. I've known Rich Cordray for 20 years, and I've had conversations with him not recently. And I don't know Congressman Ryan quite as well, but we've had some conversations, and we'll have more in the near future, I think.
How much money do you think it's going to take for the Democratic nominee to beat Kasich, and are you confident you can raise the money that's needed?
A whole lot, if that's a precise number for you. I mean, if you look at what was spent in the Sherrod Brown and Josh Mandel race, I think you're just talking about in that range. I think one of the things that's happened in politics is Ohio races, because we've become so prominent politically as a swing state, there's a lot of national interest in this race. If you look at even the national political coverage, although the local coverage was the most important coverage, but there's quite a bit of national political coverage, and it means that there's that kind of heightens I think the financial bar as well. So it's a challenge, but we'll get there.
Okay, and just take
Yeah.
another question. We'll wrap it up.
Yep, that might have been the last one. Anything else? Thanks.